and keep the key players in the public and understand, the key players in the public-private partnership. We'll also know where to find the organic law, the OFPA is what it's initialed, and be familiar with the key basic livestock requirements in the National Organic Program. We will also become acquainted with the resources that are available for organic certification and organic transitioning producers in Arizona. We have a holistic idea of what to expect when transitioning to organic, and you'll also find out the fundamental knowledge to decide if it is a good fit for you. For the label, and by the end of this session, we will have learned all of that, but I want to start with the label. What is organic? So we're going to start with discussing the label and understanding what the label means. It is a label. It means acquiring and maintaining. This label means your product has met the organic standards and has been verified that it does so. The products labeled with organic can be trusted by consumers and also trusted by handlers and fellow farmers. From a producer's perspective, the definition of organic from the National Organic Program, or the NOP, may explain it better. But the NOP is a set of regulations and standards of organic certification. It is a production system, okay? It's a method that the producer follows when transitioning to and maintaining an organic certification. It is going to be site-specific, so it is understood that no one farm is the same. An organic system plan is to be created with specific needs and conditions in mind. For example, your particular location, your soil type, weather conditions in your area, et cetera, are all considered in your site-specific organic systems plan. So now we'll dive into the origins of organic and the movements that shape these definitions, leading Congress to pass the Organic Foods Production Act and the USDA to develop rules and regulations for the production, handling, labeling, and enforcement of organic products. Next slide. Organic agriculture draws its inspiration from polyculture, cover cropping, crop rotations, and intercropping techniques that date back to ancient agriculture traditions and practices from India, China, Africa, and the early Americans, such as the Three Sisters methods, for example, which will have a system of intercropping with corn, squash, and beans. Some of these practices date back some 3,000 years. So India's traditional agriculture system and practices have been a significant influence on the organic movement, with its emphasis on maintaining soil health using compost, green manures, and deep-rooted crops. So now we're going to go back to the early 1900s with these gentlemen, Sir Albert Howard and Franklin Hiram, also known as F.H. King. They looked outside the U.S. for answers to the reason why U.S. soil was degrading only after a few generations of farming. Yet agriculture remained productive on the same land in other civilizations for thousands of years. Sir Albert Howard, who is at the top, was raised on a farm in England and moved to India, spending 26 years there as an agricultural researcher. He gained a lot of inspiration from India's traditional sustainable farming practices and then advocated for its adoption in the West. He wrote several books, including his most famed, The Agriculture Testament. This book focused on the importance of utilizing available waste materials for building and maintaining soil fertility and humus, which he called the law of return. I like that. Franklin Hiram, or F.H. King, who was at the bottom, was an American agriculture scientist and inventor. The cylindrical silo being one of his inventions. Okay. He is mostly known for writing Farmers of 40 Centuries, which is recounting his firsthand investigation of traditional farming practices in China, Korea, and Japan, which supports healthy soil and natural regenerative ecosystems. As it was common practice of the day and many years to come, he was opposed to the use of synthetic fertilizers and nutrient deficient models. Rather, he emphasized largely on building soil humus and supporting soil biology, which in turn supported healthy plants, healthy livestock, and healthy people. It is important here to notice the integration of animals for natural soil health. Next slide. Then we have Dr. George Washington Carver, who was an agriculture scientist, inventor, and a lifelong educator. A botany student and the first African-American student in Iowa Agriculture College, he later served as the agriculture director at Tuskegee Institute in Alabama for 47 years. And in 1935, Dr. Carver became an official collaborator with USDA and served in this position until a year prior to his passing in 1943. He wrote 44 bulletins on the benefits of organic agriculture. He promoted the practice of using compost to reintroduce nutrients and add organic matter to the soil, which is a practice central to organic farming. And his efforts to revitalize depleted southern soils stripped by cotton led to the development of the peanut as a popular rotational crop among its many other uses. There is so much to honor this man for, and the list of his breakthroughs and accomplishments are long. But we owe many of our early breakthroughs in soil health to Dr. Carver. He gave modern agriculture a roadmap for soil health, regeneration, and conservation. Next slide. Lady Eve Balfour was a British farmer, educator, organic farming advocate, and a prominent, passionate figure in the organic movement emerging at the time. She had arable crops, dairy cows, sheep, and occasionally pigs. She felt strongly in alternatives to chemical agriculture and started the first long-term side-by-side scientific comparison of organic and conventional farming. Notably, the Holly experiment was what it's called, which divided 216 acres into 3 sections using a different combination of organic and inorganic fertilizers. And in 1943, she published a book called The Living Soil, describing her experiments, which emphasized the importance of agriculture practices for soil, crop, and human health. Then there is Jerome Rodell, who was an early advocate in the organic movement. After reading Sir Albert Howard's work, he purchased a farm in Allentown, Pennsylvania. He began labeling Sir Albert Howard's writings as organic, and here he began his organic systems research and trials. In 1943, he started the Organic Farming and Gardening magazine, disseminating organic principles and research findings to a wider U.S. audience. In 1945 and 1948, he wrote the books Pay Dirt and The Organic Front. And in 1947, he founded the Soil and Health Foundation, later to be renamed the Rodell Institute. In 1981, the Rodell Institute launched a now long-standing farming system trial inspired by Lady Eve Balfour's work, which is focused on addressing barriers to the adoption of organic farming through applied research. As Rodell communicated the idea of creating nutrient-dense, nutrient-rich, contaminant-free soil, people began to listen and accept and gained acceptance of the organic movement. Okay. Now, more visibly into the benefits of organic farming happened in the 1960s and 1970s. The USA consumers, U.S. consumers began increasingly concerned over pesticide use. So in the minds of consumers, not using pesticides was an important part of organic agriculture to them. The USDA began surveying organic farmers to increase communication with the organic community, and that what resulted in a report that recognized the role that organic agriculture could play in a more sustainable agriculture. It was buried for a little bit, but by the Reagan administration, but continued to be read widely by the public, and it can still be accessed today. In the 1980s, the organic industry grew, which led to the formation of standards and third-party certifiers. Although these certifiers developed their own independent organic standards and processes of certification, it caused disparity among certifying standards, resulting in barriers to trade and a breakdown in consumer trust. Now, this led many to believe, both consumers and producers, that a consistent set of standards were needed and necessary. And a single set of U.S. standards for organic production, labeling, and marketing was formed. Yay! Next slide. And so in 1990, due to pressures in this movement from organic producers and consumers, Congress passed the OFPA, which stands for Organic Foods Production Act, a centralized mechanism for protecting the organic claim. This act in the year 2000 formed the creation of the NOP, which stands for National Organic Program, which is part of the USDA Ag Marketing Services, and went into effect in October 2002. It governed organic crop production, livestock production, handling, processing, and labeling. And also in 2002, the creation of the National Organic Standards Board was birthed, which we will call the NOSB. It is a board of 15 people who are federally appointed, but volunteers who are unpaid. They represent the organic sector and advise the NOP in the rulemaking process. The NOSB continues on today and are made up of organic farmers, organic processors and handlers, retailers, environmentalists, scientists, and consumer advocates. For those who aren't aware, organic started as sort of a fringe market over time, and it grew to become mainstream in the consumer eyes today. The Organic Foods Production Act, again, the OFPA, created a public-private partnership, which converted the movement into a marketplace. It was structured so that it would remain a public-private partnership to maintain the integrity of the organic label. The National Organic Program, or NOP, establishes the rules and regulations for the production, handling, labeling, and enforcement of all USDA organic products, is advised by the National Organic Standards Board. Remember, this is a federal advisory committee made up of 15 members of the public appointed by the U.S. Secretary of Agriculture, made up of organic farmers, organic processors and handlers, retailers, environmentalists, scientists, and consumers. The members all serve a 5-year uncompensated term. The NOP accredits or authorizes certifiers who certify operations, which are called they're called accredited certifying agents or ACAs. The NOP works to establish international trade arrangements for organic products as well. Our accredited certifying agents or ACAs, also known as certifiers. They can be private, they can be state and or foreign certifiers. The majority of certifiers are private, such as CCOF or Oregon TILF. Those are two of the most popular. Certifiers are responsible for making sure farmers and ranchers or processors and handlers are compliant. They hire inspectors for a visual and physical verification of the application documents that you provide to the certifier during your transition or when you renew your annual certification. The inspectors will report their findings back to the certifiers. They then provide organic certification to the operation. Certified organic operations are ranchers or farmers, processors, and handlers. The products they produce are then purchased by retailers and consumers. Here we show the organic food sales and the incremental growth from 2013 to 2022. It shows here that the organic market has grown tremendously over time, showcasing the opportunity for organic to have a continued strong, steady demand. Organic is a premium product market. Information from the 2023 OTA Organic Industry Survey tells us that in 2022 in the US, organic food sales broke through $60 million. And the total organic sales, including organic non-food products, were recorded at $67.6 billion. And that is a lot. So it should be one of those incentives to drive people to move to the organic because it is more, you get more money with the organic. No two certifiers are going to be alike, and they have their own process and requirements. So please research and review your certifiers and become familiar with their particular application needs. It's a general certification process for most certifiers, and just so we know, for the general certification process, the first thing producers will do is submit the application to the certifier. That application should also include the application, your organic system plan, your farm or ranch map, field histories for new fields, an operator agreement or affirmation report of your organic sales. Also, certifiers review the application, and then an inspector will visit your operation. Once that has been done, the certifier reviews the inspector's report, and then the certifier will issue the organic certificate. When you get ready to review your organic certification, you will need to update your organic systems plan, sign an operator agreement, address all non-compliance issues that have not already been resolved, and pay your annual certification fee. Also, you will undergo an annual inspection through this process. The general certification process is sourced from ATRA, and I highly recommend reading their guide. The guide walks you through the organic certification process for those who are transitioning to organic, and it reviews many of the topics in the NOP regulations that we will discuss. This guide includes questions you may need to ask yourself, helping you to evaluate your operations eligibility for organic certification and it'll help you identify areas where your practices may need to be changed. Okay, so now that we have the big picture, let's zoom in and see how all of this applies to your operation. Title 7, Part 205 should be considered your guidebook, manual, or Bible, whatever you like to call it. And when transitioning to organic or maintaining your certification, understanding and meeting the national organic programs, rules, and regulations is imperative to being compliant. This is where terms, exceptions, and requirements for certification is defined and explained. So your organic systems plan should work towards being compliant with this NOP. Right, so now we've got through a lot of the meat of the backstory of the National Organic Program and the organics requirements for certification. I am going to drop the link in the chat, and I want you to click on it. Take a couple of minutes to familiarize yourself with this page. And then I want you to navigate to part 205.202. That is the Organic Production and Handling Systems Plan. Take a few minutes to read this section. I promise you, it's not gonna be that long. And when you're ready, in a few sentences, please drop in the chat your key takeaways from this section. We'll just take a few minutes.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Let's read some of the key takeaway or key points that you guys found in this section. I gotta find my chat button. Do you mind reading those for me, please? My colleagues in the back.
I don't see any comments, but if anyone wants to unmute themselves and feeling bold, otherwise, Sharrona, you can just lead us on in.
Okay. Well, among the documents required for you for certification, excuse me. Among the documents required of you for certification is the OSP. Developing one and then maintaining the OSP is an essential part of the initial and ongoing certification process. Your OSP must be written by the producer and approved by your certifier. The plan also must allow the certifier to assess whether they can meet the requirements for organic certification. It must be sufficiently detailed so that the certifier can get a clear picture of your farm's crops, harvest, sales, record keeping, soil building practices, pest management, and any other practices related to organic production. Here, I wanted to stress your, okay, because remembering back to the first few slides, the NOP definition of organic production, the NOP's definition of organic production is a production system that responds to site-specific conditions. Again, we understand that no one farm is the same, so an organic system plan is to be created with your specific needs and conditions in mind. As long as it adheres to the NOP, the OSP is going to be your opportunity to describe your operation to a person who has never seen it. For livestock, your organic system plan will need to account for your source for animals if you don't raise them from newborn to production yourself, your source for feed, especially if you don't grow it all yourself, the size and conditions of the shelters that will house your animals. Also needs to include how the animals will regularly access the outdoors. Okay. It needs to include a healthcare plan for your animals that doesn't include the use of antibiotics or other prohibited substances. They'll want to know your manure management systems and plans for processing the livestock into products for the market. It is important to know that in order to be certified organic, there is a 3-year transitional period for your fields and your pastures. Transitioning livestock animals themselves differ slightly, and we will get into the details of that later. But for example, if a pasture has been sprayed with a synthetic herbicide, you should not apply for certification of that pasture until 3 years later. Certifying the land is the first step of organic livestock production. Also, it's important to mention that partnering with federal, state, and local partners around the land is allowed. Grazing permits with BLM, Forest Services, and state trust land are used in organic livestock production as well. In this case, agreements are typically required that the partner will notify the operation in advance or if and when a prohibited substance is applied to a portion of the land, and that the operation will surrender that portion of the land and document how they would keep animals from assessing that affected area for that 3-year period. Record keeping by certified operations. This is a big one, guys, and it's a lengthy rule because record keeping is everything in organic. I want you to remember this slide, and because I want you to remember it, I'm going to read it, take a minute to read it over with you together. Section 205.103 A through C says an organic certified operation must maintain records concerning the production, harvesting, and handling of agricultural products that are intended to be sold, labeled, or represented as 100% organic, or made with organic, and you specified ingredients or food groups. B, such records must be, number one, be adapted to the particular business that the certified operation is conducting. 2, fully disclose all activities and transactions of the certified operation in sufficient detail as to be readily understood and audited. Records must span the time of purchase or acquisition through production. to sell or transport and be traceable back to the last certified operation. Number 3, it should include audit trail documentation for agricultural products handled or produced by the certified operation, and identifying agricultural products on these groups as 100% organic, or made with organic, or specified, which is specified ingredients or food groups, or similar terms as applicable. Number 4, it must be maintained for not less than 5 years beyond their creation. And number 5, be sufficient to demonstrate compliance with the Act and the regulations in this part. Back to number C. The certified operation must make such records available for inspection and copying during normal business hours by authorized representative of the secretary and applicable to state programs, governing state officials, and the certifying agent. Woo! This is so important, guys. And often it's the most challenging part of organic transitioning. You will need to be able to audit each of your animals and animal products with your records. Important records to keep for livestock production are going to include for your land. You may need to keep invoices for materials purchased, records of material applications, records of yield, harvest, and organic sales of crops. For your livestock, you will need to keep organic certificates for purchased livestock, sale and purchase records for livestock and products, an inventory list showing organic or conventional status, breeding, birth, and health records for your animals. And for your feed records, you will need to keep records of feeding plans for all species and all classes of your animals, harvest and storage records for feed grown on your farm, any feed purchase records such as invoices, tags, labels, and organic certificates. For your ruminant stock, keep grazing records, dry matter intake calculations and sources of dry matter intake values, records of days on the pasture, pasture management, and so many other things. So this is just a brief overview of some of the type of records you'll need to keep. We're going to drop in the chat some more documentation information for you to have and to review on your own time. For the basic livestock requirements, section 205.236, the origin of livestock. Livestock products that are to be sold, labeled, or represented as organic must be from livestock under continuous organic management from the last third of gestation or hatching, except that poultry or edible poultry products must be from poultry that has been under continuous organic management beginning no later than the second day of life. So that's a day-old chick, right? And for dairy animals, we must have been under organic management for 1 year prior, except that crops and forage from land on the organic dairy farm must be consumed in the 3rd year of transition. What does that mean for the different animals in your organic production? Well, for slaughter stock, this is always the case. They will always need to be under continuous organic management. For cows, this means that the last 95 days of gestation, they will need to have been under continuous organic management for your calf to be considered organic. For sows, this means that the last 38 days of gestation, they will have to be under continuous organic management for their piglets to be considered organic. For does, this means that the last 50 days of gestation need to be under continuous organic management for their kids to be considered organic. For ewes, this means the last 50 days of gestation They will have to be under continuous organic management for lambs to be considered organic. But I did put the picture of the chick on the screen because they're the odd exception to the origin of livestock rule. For poultry, breeding stock does not have to be managed organically as long as chicks are obtained and managed organically by second day of life. There are some other nuances to this rule, like livestock used as breeder stock can be brought from a non-organic operation to an organic operation at any time, such as bulls being brought in from a non-organic operation for the purpose of breeding. It is also a little different for dairy herds, right? Milk or milk products must be from animals under continuous organic management from 1 year before the production of milk or milk products to be sold as organic. Also, you might remember that in year 3 of organic land being transitioned, you can still count that as organic dairy land. Dairy animals will require an entire distinct herd to be integrated at once, which negates breeder stocks coming in and just needing to be managed organically in the last third of gestation for organic offspring. And why is this? You asked. I know you asked. Well, to prevent continuous incorporation of conventional replacement stock for a 1-year transition to organic. So in short, you'll need to integrate an entire herd so that they can all reach the 1-year mark for organic transition together. And for livestock feed, all agricultural products must be organic. So your alfalfa needs to be organic. Any agricultural products need to be organic, meaning you have to grow it yourself as certified organic, or you have to purchase certified organic feed. Synthetic substances are not allowed unless a select few that are listed in this section 205.603. Non-synthetic substances are allowed except a select few that are listed in section 205.604. I know this is confusing, I know, but just try to keep in mind that usually non-synthetics are allowed, synthetics are not. And if you have any questions, always ask your certifier. There's also a great third-party resource that you can check out. It's called it's the Organic Materials Review Institute, or OMRI. You might have seen that those acronyms on many products, and that is to let you know it'll give you a comprehensive list of allowed substances. We're going to drop that in the chat for you. Next slide, please. All right. Now let's talk about the do nots of organic livestock feed. You cannot use hormones or ionophores. No feed supplements above those needed for the adequate nutrition and health maintenance for the species of animals and at its specific stage of life. You need to list all ingredients and feeding materials in your OSP. For your certifier can also help suggest substitutes when you're transitioning. If you have any questions, like I said, make sure you ask your certifier. Amino acids are allowed if they are produced by plants and microorganisms, and they must obtain through physical and non-chemical means, which is considered non-synthetic and is allowable in organic production. They cannot provide in amounts above those required for adequate nutrition and health maintenance for a species at a specific stage of life. So again, record keeping is the key. Communication with your certifier as well as providing references and doing your own research to defend why you might be making the management decisions that you are making in your feeding of your animals. Record keeping is a reoccurring theme in organic livestock management. There are a lot of gray areas here, so it's up to you to keep your records. It's also up to you again to do your research to defend why you've chosen the feeding or housing selections that you choose are appropriate, and consistently communicate with your certifier because they may have their own set of guidelines. Poultry is the only species that the NOP allows for supplementing of synthetic amino acids, and only specifically for synthetic methylthioline. And you are allowed to feed that at prescribed amounts. So you need to balance your feed practices. So you need to balance your feed practices to bring in naturally occurring amino acids into their diet and to prevent off flavors in your products. Like if you feed too much fish meal to your stock, it may cause the product to have an off flavor. For poultry, grit and xanthanophilus is allowed. In organic management, fat and protein sources can become tricky, especially if you are involved in dairy or a by-season operation. You also cannot use any mammalian or animal byproducts in your feed. No tallow, no hydrogenized animal fats are allowed in organic either. And this makes organic livestock producers more dependent on oil seeds like canola, cottonseed, soybean, sunflower seeds. But even with oil seeds, you have to check that the solvents used are not inorganic, and communicate with your certifier to make sure they are approved. Protein sources are allowed, but no urea, no animal meals such as meat meal, bone meal, feather meal, or blood meal. Can't use any of those. Again, oil seeds are going to be an important tool in your organic livestock feed toolbox. Now we're going to talk about this pasture practice standard, or the pasture rule, we call it. It is very much related to the livestock feed in that you are required to provide access to pastures as a part of your feeding plan. This is for disease prevention, and that is everything in organic livestock production. And part of what your certifier wants to see in your pasture plan, which should show you how you are moving your animals through your pastures to break the cycles of parasites and diseases. And it also protects your soil and your water quality. So I want you to think rotational grazing plans. In fact, you have to be very specific in these plans and go into great detail of your grazing season plan, which should include information like the amount grazed, the location and size of the pastures with the map, pasture IDs, types of grazing methods used, fencing, the location of shade for your animals, access to water, erosion control, protection of wetlands and riparian areas, your soil fertility. Lost my place. Give me one second. There's soil fertility and any seeding that's done on your land. Remember to go into great depths with this plan because the importance of pasturing in the organic livestock. Okay. The pasture rule only applies to ruminant stock, not to monogastrics, and does not apply to pigs or poultry. But there is a new published rule, which we will get into later, about poultry, okay? The pasture rule also states you must allow a minimum of 120 days of grazing during the grazing season, and that all animals must have a minimum of 30% dry matter obtained from grazed forage during the grazing season. It is important that you can calculate the dry matter intake of your livestock and are able to assess your available forage. We do not have time to go into all of that today, but we will drop some links in the chat for reference. There are also species-specific allowances for temporary confinement, like for prevention of health conditions such as foot rot in lambs who can be confined on concrete, or for breeding when some species can be confined as long as they have access to outdoors. But these exemptions still do not negate the pasture rule. So if your livestock are being held in confinement for whatever reason, and they get zero dry matter while in confinement, they will need to get more dry matter during the remainder of the grazing season to still meet your 30% dry matter requirement over the entire season. Other times you are okay to confine away from pasture could be for a situation like milking, but then you'll need to return your animals to pasture right after. There are also some exemptions to the pasture rule. As always, there's always some exemptions. Calves can be confined up to 6 months if they can stand and move around. During finishing off periods for your animals, you have an exemption from the pasture rule. Also, as I kind of touched on earlier, breeding bulls in a cow-calf operation are exempt from the pasture rule, but cannot be sold as organic. Also, I'm going to drop a link in the chat, which describes understanding the organic pasture rule. For livestock care and production practices standards, this is the healthcare rule for your organic livestock. Okay, it is important to understand that cultural management to prevent disease and promote animal well-being through best animal husbandry practices is at the core of organic livestock management. This is achieved through species and type selections, feed and nutrition, providing appropriate housing, pasture and living conditions, and being sanitary on your farm. Performance of physical alterations should be as needed to promote the animal's welfare and done in a manner to minimize pain and stress is allowable and should be done early in the animal's life to reduce stress and pain. Some examples of some physical alterations are tail docking, freeze branding, castration, needle teeth clipping in piglets, and beak trimming. These are all allowed. Vaccines are also allowed. Make sure you check with your certifier to be sure that there are no prohibited adjuvants in the vaccines. For animal welfare purposes, you are required to treat your animals for injury or illness, even if this means that the treatment would take that animal out of organic management status. You will have to separate that animal from the rest in a clearly designated and separated area, and record that the animal is now conventional. It cannot be sold as organic. Growth hormones are not promoted, and neither is forced molting for your poultry. Now, you might remember when we discussed Section 205.603 earlier, and you might also remember that there are some synthetic substances that are allowed in organic. While we are on the topic of animal health care, I want to take a moment to discuss parasiticides. They cannot be used on a routine basis, only in emergency situations, as the key to your animal health care plan is going to be preventative, right? You cannot plan ahead to use parasiticides. So you will want to work with your certifier on measuring fecal egg counts, maybe drawing blood and other ways to assess parasite populations because they may help to determine when to use them for emergency care. There are only two parasiticides listed here that you can use, and they are fenbendazole, and moxidectin. Remember that preventative practices and veterinary biologics are not able to prevent sickness. A producer may administer synthetic medications provided they are allowed under Section 205.603. In this section, it says parasiticides are not allowed on slaughter stock, but they are allowed on breeder stock as long as it is prior to the last third of gestation and not when lactating, on dairy animals or on fiber-bearing animals. After parasiticide treatments, dairy products and fiber-bearing animals cannot be labeled organic for 2 days following any treatment for cattle and 36 days for goats and sheep. In swine, only fenbendazole is approved for use. So you'll only have that one option for parasite control. Now, mammalian and non-avian livestock living conditions. This is the livestock living conditions rule here. And in this law, it goes into more than what I show here. But the important thing to remember is to have shelter that is clean, well ventilated, spacious enough for your species, has year-round access to outdoors, and allows for animals to engage in their natural behaviors, whether that be social aspects or rooting for swine, for your swine. The NOP historically depended on qualitative descriptions. It did not give any hard or fast numbers, but certifiers often have guidelines by species that is more specific on just what is expected of you. It will require adequate space for your species and stage of life and outdoor access, and allowance for natural behaviors and opportunities for exercise. You'll have to work with your certifier and do your homework research, but you'll want to do something. If you want to do something a certain way and research backs it, present the idea to your certifier. Also, a new rule is in place that clarifies a lot of the qualitative aspects of animal living conditions and welfare, and we will touch on this in just a bit. While confinement overall is not allowed in organic, there are times that temporary confinement is accepted. For instance, ruminant slaughter stock are allowed to have a finishing off period. So this means that during the finishing off period, ruminant stocks are exempt from the pasture rule, which dictates the 30% dry matter from grazing. Yards, feedlots, feeding pads used to prevent crowding and competition for food, but are allowed so long as the finishing period is not over 1/5 of the animal's life or 120 days, whichever is shorter. The producer of an organic livestock operation may provide temporary confinement or shelter for an animal because of the animal's stage of life. This comes in a lot for poultry. For chicks, poults, and young poultry, typically confined during brooding to keep them safe from predation, but outdoor access is required for all poultry once they have adequate feathering. Your certifier may have a specific outline on this, so communicate with them. But the producer of an organic livestock operation may provide temporary confinement or shelter for an animal because of conditions under which the health or safety or well-being of the animal could be jeopardized. You can confine at night because of predators. And producers of organic livestock operations may temporarily deny a ruminant animal pasture or outdoor access 1 week at the end of a lactation for dry off. So you'll be denying to pasture only. 3 weeks prior to birthing, you can confine, and during birthing and up to 1 week after birthing. Organic livestock and poultry standards, which we call the OLPS. There is a new rule here that's impacting organic poultry producers. This rule strengthens intended animal welfare standards in organic livestock production and has been in process for a long time with an NOP or National Organic Program. It is something that organic producers, organic advocates, animal welfare advocates, and consumers have wanted for a long time. And it is born out of public comments to clarify and reduce confusion in the interpretation of the organic rules. For example, the existing regulation requires year-round access for all animals to the outdoor. Some operations and have interpreted this general requirement for outdoor access to mean that organically managed poultry need only to have access to fresh air and sunlight. And they feel that this can be satisfied with screened, elevated porch structures known as porches. Other certifying agents require operations to provide access to outdoor spaces with access to soil and vegetation. But even then, certifiers may differ in their interpretations of how much space must be provided for the outdoor. This new rule sets space and stocking density requirements for both indoor and outdoor spaces for poultry. It clarifies that poultry must have unrestricted year-round access to outdoor and can only be confined in limited and temporary situations. It prohibits porches as outdoor spaces and requires weekly monitoring of ammonia in their indoor spaces. It clarifies that shelters must allow for your animals to move, stretch, and express natural behaviors over a 24-hour period, such as dust baths and scratching. It adds species-specific requirements for swine as well, including requirements for rooting materials and group housing for swine. It also defines and prohibits several physical alterations, allowing it only for the safety or for identification purposes. And again, requiring producers to document all treatment of sick or injured animals. This OLPS rule adds specific detail for animal transport and slaughter as well. Okay, for instance, animals being transported must be clearly identified and able to walk. Transporting must protect animals from extreme temperatures. And the FSIS humane slaughter standards must be followed. All of this to say that this rule is rolling out now and adds clarity to the animal welfare intentions of the law. Certifiers will be updating records and inspection processes to reflect the new rule. So be sure to talk to them to find out how it will affect your operation as this rule goes into effect January 2025. We won't go into each new provision today, but just know that you'll need to review the new OLPS's clarifications on animal welfare regulations, and you can check the chat for more information on the link. So friends, we do not have time right now to go into the certification for organic livestock processing and handling, but it is important to note that you will either need to route your organic livestock through an organic certified meat processing and handling facility, or if you are processing and handling your own livestock, you will need to get certified for that as well. That was a lot, right? We went through a lot today. So with all that information just swimming around in your head, let's go through some pros and cons of organic transition and organic certification. Let's start with the pros. So a pro to me is organic comes with a premium. The product is more profitable to sell. The market is still on the rise and the product demand is strong. Over time, input costs will decrease, especially when long-term management systems for things like cover cropping for soil health and hedges for pest control are in place. You'll be letting nature do the work for you. It personally aligns with the philosophy of organic, putting a focus on human health, soil health, animal health, plant health, and it is climate smart. Record keeping also creates an organized way of doing business, and I think that is considered a pro. Some of the cons. On the flip side, record keeping is a lot of extra work. Transitioning to and recertifying for your organic status is hard. Documenting and keeping good records are required for transparency and auditability. Auditability. Not to mention all of the changes and new systems that will need to be applied on the land in your production and by your third-party vendors. That's a lot. That's a lot of work. What if you, and then also, what you're doing or not doing may affect your production, okay? Your organic certification is costly, and that can be a con for most people. The availability of animal feed and of meat processors for your livestock may be limited or totally unavailable. And disease prevention can be tricky as you are limited in your treatments for your animals. Now that we've gotten the gist of the organic livestock production and we've weighed it all out, let's do another little exercise. And I really would like for you guys to participate in this. Please share your thoughts with me. What are your biggest pros and cons of the organic certification process? It's a lot, right? We went through a lot of information, but if you're thinking of transitioning, just drop in the chat what you think will be some of the best reasons to go organic or why you would choose not to. You can feel free to drop your comments in the chat, or you can mute yourself and just give us a brief comment.
Hi there, good morning. The pro for me is the aspect of better health, better quality food. And then the con would be definitely the paperwork.
Yes, I would seem to agree with you. But like I said, it's also a pro because the more records that you keep, the better business management strategies that you are creating for yourself. Thank you for your comment.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Yeah, for me, I don't know if you can hear me.
I can.
Yeah, for me, it would definitely be the record keeping will be one of the cons, but I understand why it would be a pro because keeping records would definitely help. But I do like the putting the premium cost on organic and just having a healthier livestock.
Yes, thank you for that comment. And I would agree with you there. The holistic aspects of organic is I'm all about it. Soil, animal health, human health. We know exactly what we're putting in our bodies, and it's chemical free. And I love that aspect of organic as well. Anybody else want to chime in?
Sharrona. Akila Harris says, I agree the con would be the paperwork and ensuring your livestock is managed properly to stay within the term of organic. As a pro, I believe. Angela Denise also said pro healthy food, con paperwork. Rachel says the cost is the only potential barrier. The pros far outweigh the cons as the premium is a big one. And being more trusted in the community as well as being a good pro. Sara El Said said, one of the cons I've heard from livestock producers trying to transition is the number of pasture days, especially here in Arizona, where they might not have as many days available to them on pasture as required by the NOP. Akila Harris also says the pros are the history and how beneficial the organic lifestyle is to consumers and how the industry is growing and you can make more money with your products.
I love all of that. Well, I would love for you to come and talk to us in extension. I will drop my email and phone number in the chat. And remember, I'm here to support you with any questions that you have. I will also drop in the chat a link to our newsletter subscription and Instagram info so that you can stay abreast of all of our upcoming events. That's the best way to find out what's going on here in Extension is through the newsletter or through social media. Also, I like to just touch on the fact that the Organic Certification Cost Share Program, which we call the OCCSP, provides cost share assistance to producers and handlers wanting to obtain or renew their organic certification. Or applicants may receive funding for 50 to 75% of their organic certification costs, depending on the program funding availability. In Arizona here, AZDA, which is Arizona Department of Agriculture, and Arizona Farm Service Agency are the local agencies who lead this program. You will need to contact Robert Nick with the Arizona Department of Agriculture, and your contact with Farm Service Agency will be Ryan Hunt. There's national funding that is announced in June, and local agencies normally will apply for those funds, okay? Once the funds are released to the local agencies, producers are able to get those funds. And that usually, the applications for that usually roll out in November. To stay up to date with all of this information, you can email Robert Nick. We will add so that you can be added to his as the organic listserv. I'm sorry. And the Sweetie Center for Sustainable Food Systems at ASU is leading Arizona's transition to organic partnership program, which we call TOP. I will be introducing their project and event coordinator, Courtney Buzzard, who will speak about available resources for transitioning to organic and their new certifier sheet to help interested producers find a certifier. And also the upcoming Climate Smart incentives for organic production, she'll talk about as well. NRCS also has resources for organic, which we will hear more about later on as well. And now I'm so excited to jump into the next session of our webinar. I would like to welcome my colleagues who are Colleen Hanley and organic producer Sara Dolan, and they're going to go through some question and answers with you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sharrona. That was a lot of information download, and rules are never fun for me, at least, or interesting. So I appreciate you breaking it down, and I appreciate everyone for staying online with us during all of those really in the weeds aspects of organic livestock production. So I have some questions for you, Sara. Thanks for joining us today. And I'm hoping that you can give us more of this applied experience perspective on what organic layer poultry is like in Arizona. But just to start, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, why you chose to certify your eggs as organic, and about Bluesky Organic Farms?
Guys. Yeah, so I can't imagine not certifying. I mean, we've been a certified organic farm for over 30 years. So when we decided to bring chickens on about 9 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe, there was really never a thought of not doing it organically. Obviously for health reasons, holistic reasons, and animal welfare reasons, I feel like it's a given why you should do that. So anyway, we run a fairly unconventional operation of egg layers here. I have right around 200 active layers at any given time. We get about 100 new layers every year. And so we buy day-old chicks through the mail, just like they were talking about earlier. And as soon as they get to the farm, they're started on organic feed. And as soon as they're like a week old, they start being fed organic greens from our pastures and our, produce that comes out. It's not quite perfect. And we get them outside pretty quickly because fortunately it's hot enough outside here. So that's an advantage to being in Arizona, I guess, if you time it right. You can get your chicks outside pretty quickly and get them acclimated to weather as long as you have the right confinement areas for them. So we actually do. And that way it gets them started scratching and digging and dust bathing and acting like chickens right away. So.
Great. I like how you said, there was never any other way from organic, and you've been doing it for so long. Have you ever dabbled into other organic livestock production aspects?
So we did organic ducks and organic meat chickens for a few years. And ultimately, I mean, raising them was basically the same for us. I raised my ducks with my chickens. I'm all about efficiency in labor. So if it means I lose a little in production, but it makes it easier, one, on me, because in the summer it's just me taking care of everybody. So I'm definitely all about making it as easy as possible. And we had little kids when we were doing that. So, I never did like chicken tractors really or anything. I mean, they were just out on pasture. And so it was a little harder to judge. Like it took a little longer for them to grow because they weren't confined at all and they were getting more muscle. So it was just different. But ultimately in the end, the labor of slaughtering wasn't easy to come by. And so we decided after 3 years, we weren't going to do that anymore. And I kept my ducks that we never actually slaughtered for egg ducks, and ducks live forever. I mean, I still have some 7 or 8 year old ducks back there.
Wow.
Not that they lay anymore. So yeah. So I also raise goats, but we don't certify our goats because I don't do any food production with them. They are dairy goats, but mostly we are a kidding operation, and I sell to people all over the country. And I have looked into every year. I think, oh, this is the year I'm going to certify the goats as organic, but I ultimately never do it because there's really not a reason for me to do it at this point. If we ever decided to do dairy for sale, I would definitely do it. They're raised on organic land. It is hard to come by organic alfalfa here in Arizona if you're not going to grow it yourself. So if anybody's interested in doing ruminants organically here, I recommend you grow your own feed.
Yeah,
But
that's a great point. That growing your own feed when there's not a good market supply chain for you is something to consider. Have you grown any alfalfa yourself for
we
feed?
used to do about 300 acres of alfalfa organically in Dayton. We don't anymore. And I seriously don't know of a single organic hay, alfalfa, Bermuda, anybody growing. Not to say that there's not. We get phone calls all the time, but I don't know of anybody. And I know a lot of organic people, but obviously not everybody. But so, you know, at times of the year, you can definitely do it on regular pasture, and we do, but you're going to need to supplement, and you'll have to look pretty hard to get enough organic feed if you've got a herd that's of any size. If you're just going to do a few to start with, you can buy organic alfalfa pellets, you know, by the ton, or you can buy them by the 50-pound bag. I mean, Tractor Supply even has them. So organic feed is much easier to come by, especially for chickens. Everywhere has organic feed. I buy my organic feed by the ton out of a place in California, and I get usually about 10 tons at a time.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about both your breeds selection for your layer poultry, and also, you know, just in general for your ducks, for your goats? How do you make selections, and have you changed breeds over the years? Is that something that you can go into a little bit for us today?
So it's funny because when I first started with chickens, I think we started with like 25 chickens, and I went for pretty chickens. You know, we got 3 of these, 4 of those, whatever. And then we were like, okay, chickens. And so we got like 300 chickens, and we got a whole bunch of different breeds. And that was the last time I stopped paying attention to what breeds we were getting. I have tried several breeds over the years. A lot of people are going to be into production birds like the sex links and some of the more hybrid productions, the leghorns. For me here, where we are in Maricopa County, I think they're fragile. I lose a lot more in the heat than I do with the older heritage breeds. So there's a lot of expense in getting a bird from 2 days old when you get it to 16 to 20 weeks when it starts laying. I mean, you're going to put a lot of money in feeding and care into that bird. And so if you get it to the point where it's just going to start laying eggs, or it has just started laying eggs, even if it's, you know, been laying for 6 months and then it dies because of heat or cold, you really have not made your money back from that bird quite yet. So I like a lot of the older heritage breeds now. I look for breeds that forage a lot, and because some breeds are lazy, you know, they're just going to stick with the feed that you put out, and they're not going to go out in the pasture. That's not what I'm looking for. My pastures are goats, chickens, ducks, a goose. Occasionally I put the pigs in there. So I'm really looking for my chickens to get out there and dive into the manure and scratch up all of that, you know, that's out there. And make sure that they're helping to keep my pastures growable, you know. Ducks compact a lot of the ground, so that I need the chickens to come in behind them and scratch it up so that we're not getting, you know, compaction, and we get good drainage when we irrigate, all of that. So I like a lot of the heritage breeds, like the Barred Rocks, the Buckeyes, the Plymouth Rocks, the Rhode Island Reds, New Jersey Giant, you know, I like the Jersey Giants. And I'm also the Buff Orpingtons and stuff, they can be broody, and I'm not interested in being pecked a whole bunch either anymore. So yeah.
So
And I will tell you,
temperament is key for you,
Yeah.
and you know that survival instinct.
and but also, you know, yeah, you want them to, I do not want lazy birds. The other thing that I have found is, like, I will try to do different colors every other year. So I'll try to get darker colored birds like this year, versus next year I'll probably get lighter colored birds, and that way it's a whole lot easier for me to tell the age of the bird as it goes out. So it's hard to tell, you know, a 1 and 2-year-old bird otherwise, but like a 1 and a 3-year-old bird, even though they're the same color, you can tell which one's the young chicken and which one's the old chicken pretty easily.
And I know that you mentioned you can get your feed just at Tractor Supply, and your birds are out on pasture all of the time. I'm wondering if you also have to supplement at all for your nutrition, and what type of supplements you use, where you source them from.
We don't, well, we don't supplement a lot. So we use I use a no corn, no soy, no canola feed. So it's pretty much the most expensive organic feed you can buy. My customer base, that is important too. So I get a premium price for my birds, or my eggs. It for me, that is also important, you know, to make sure that there's a good quality feed behind them. So when I have that, the only other thing that we supplement with are mostly greens out of our fields. You know, we grow a lot of, our main source of income here and production is vegetables. So during the year, you know, we grow a lot of salad mix and process it. So everything that comes out of the processing room, or when we're processing cauliflower and we cut off the big leaves, or broccoli, you know, we take a lot of our waste out of the fields. And if it's not getting composted to go back in the fields, it's going to the chickens. And they eat we put out between 200 and 300 pounds of feed a day, pretty much, for them. That's to be said, they don't eat it all. I mean, a lot of it is just turns into mulch and compost, and we'll go back and scrape the pens and then recompost all of that later to put back in the fields. So it's very much a cycle for us, but it's very important to me that they get a ton of other greens, not just grass out there.
Wow. So you could really go above and beyond, it sounds like.
Yeah. And, you know, for us, it's just the nature of our business. It works for us, you know, and it's a whole lot better to feed it back to something else, to somebody else on the farm, whether that's the pigs or the goats or the horses or whoever, and the compost, than to just throw it in the dumpster. And, you know, if I can throw it out in layers, out in the pastures and out in the chicken pens, it reduces the smell of having it like in piles that have to go in trash. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
Our neighbors that way too.
Feeding animals is a great way to reduce food waste in general. So, can you talk a little bit about preventative health care and what that looks like to you and your flock?
For us, preventative is pretty much sunlight. I'm a big proponent of sunlight. So I don't ever confine my chickens. I don't confine anybody I mean, we have different pastures that we rotate the big animals through, but the chickens are out, and the chickens can go into the goat pastures, the goats can't go into the chickens. So it's a special fencing that chickens and ducks can get through, but goats can't. But so for us, raising the chickens and the ducks together is also very important, because most diseases that chickens would get that could like bird flus and stuff are generally waterfowl diseases, and ducks don't get them. I'm not saying 100% of the time, but in the 10 years I've been doing it, I've never had a bird flu or anything hit us when everybody around us has. And I really attribute that to having the ducks with my chickens since day one. And also, yeah, so I don't ever confine anybody. I have a big chicken house. You can go in there and lay your eggs and sleep if you want. If you want to sleep on the top of a fence, go sleep on the top of a fence. If you want to sleep on the ground, go sleep on the ground. If I have 5 or 6 different types of layer boxes or ground nests, I am trying to make these birds happy, because happy birds produce more and live longer. So whatever, maybe chickens don't like decorations and curtains. I don't know. Some do, some don't. Some want to lay on a tree, some don't. So for me, that's important, is getting them to just be as close to nature as they were intended to be. But in 10 years, we had chicken, some sort of pox, avian pox. And it was a really humid beginning of the summer. And they got these black spots on their combs. And we used something called oxine. And I had to, get it pre-approved through CCOF and it was just something that we put in humidifiers. We got a few 2-gallon humidifiers and put it in the chicken house. And then we got a bigger one outside, and within like 2 days it was gone. So, but as far as like parasites and pest management, we don't really do anything. I don't feed them anything for that. They have a lot of options for dust baths, so that takes care of a lot of mites. Occasionally, once or twice a year, I'll throw some diatomaceous earth out in a few piles. And usually chickens are smart, they know, and the ones that need it, and the ones that don't. But other than that, I don't, occasionally, I used to be the person that was like, I made oregano mixes and I made paprika and, garlic and all of that. No, that was fun when you had 25 chickens. It might even be fun if you have 100 chickens. It's not fun if you've got this many chickens, and it's expensive in the end. So the other thing is I test before I integrate my new chickens every year with my old chickens. I test my new chickens. My vet comes out and takes fecal samples, and we send it in to make sure that there's no parasites or diseases or anything like that. So I think that's also really important. For my goats, we're pretty much the same way. We don't treat for parasites. I have a closed herd. I haven't brought in a new goat in 5 or 6 years. So, and I have roughly about 120 goats. They're not all production goats. A lot of them are rescues or what have you. Or retired or my friends. But we don't do that. We do CDT vaccines just because there's a ton of tetanus here in Arizona, and ruminants get tetanus very quickly. It's not, they don't have soap and water like we do. So that's pretty much the only vaccine that I do for anybody here other than the horses, but that's ridiculous. So
have you ever had an animal that needed a non-organic treatment, and how did you go about that? If yes, like how did you differentiate them?
Oh God, yes. So chickens, let's start with the chickens because they are organic. And occasionally they will get attacked by something, or they'll get stepped on by a goat or kicked by a donkey or whatever. And they traditionally, or sometimes they'll peck each other. Chickens are kind of mean. So if they get hurt, we'll separate them. So I will remove them completely from the flock and take them to another part of the farm. I usually bring them up by the store, and they get to live their life up there. And so those eggs are the eggs I take home and eat, or I feed to my dogs, or, you know, but we don't sell those eggs. So that's the difference is, and they go up there for life.
So completely separated.
Mhm.
Now, you mentioned predation, and without confinement, I guess, how are you accounting a certain percentage of predation? How big of an issue is it on your farm? Let's
Yeah,
go into a little bit
it
about that.
happens. So, actually my pigs killed 30 chickens one night, not too long ago. So I had to separate the pigs. They were bad pigs. All the chickens that were roosting on the fence posts between the pigs and the chicken pens, which there were a lot, apparently, the pigs would go up after the chickens would roost and knock them down. And chickens are basically in a coma when they're asleep like that. That's how they stay
Wow.
up. And so the pigs would knock them down, stomp them. They ate some, others they just killed for sport. I don't want you to think I have mean pigs, because I really don't. They just were looking for some excitement in their lives. Now they live with the bucks. It's excitement for them. But you know, like other than that, we have dug our fences down 2 feet underground and 2 feet out on each side, and laid fence so that nothing can dig, because not only do coyotes dig, but dogs dig. And then around my chicken fences are 8 feet tall, and they kind of look like prison fences because they curve in, because chickens also can fly. So it stops them from flying out if the tops are curved in. Most of the time. I mean, you're always going to have that one Olympian chicken who can do anything. And then I put netting about 10 feet high over the majority of the chicken yard, so they can't fly out. I mean, they have plenty of branches and trees to be in at that site. But then nothing like hawks or other birds can get in. And then over the pasture, the open pasture where the goats and the donkeys are, I run either cabling or fish line about every 10 feet, side to side, so that things can't swoop in. It just makes, you know, avian predators, you know, owls, hawks, because we have a lot out here. It makes them not be able to swoop in and get anything and come back out. So we do what we can. And every year something manages to get through and we have to go back and figure something else out. But over the last 4 or 5 years, the losses have been minimal that way.
Great. Well, I'm happy that the pigs are finding new excitement. It's great for them. We heard a lot today that record keeping is a big con for people. Could you talk a little bit about your record keeping practices and how you verify for your certifier and inspector that you're maintaining living requirements, feed requirements, medicine requirements, all of those, you know, organic practices and that we touched on today?
So for my feed records, I keep receipts. I keep all my receipts, and then in a folder. I keep my chicken feed receipts separate than, you know, fertilizer or whatever else we're doing on the farm. So I can just hand them the folder and they can look at it. And I find that to be honestly the easiest way, is just to have a good filing system. Everything pretty much for me comes with an email receipt too. So I can, you know, go back and find something if I need it. And then I keep a Google, I have one of my sub calendars on my Google Drive for my Gmail is a chicken death calendar. And so every time that because you have to keep track of your losses and your additions. Mine is literally titled chicken death. And that way I can go in and say, hey, I lost 2 baby chicks today, or hey, there was 1 chicken dead in the coop. And then I just pull that report. So that's a whole lot easier because it's also on my phone and I don't have to remember to come in and log into my calendar. I can just put it on my calendar when I'm out there. I very much am into things being easy and doing them on the spot when you can. So I keep a lot of my records in Google Drive because it's on my phone, easily accessible. I can share it with my auditor. Either some auditors will want it beforehand, some won't want it till the day they get there. So for me, I'm like, okay, who are you? What are your preferences? And so I keep everything like that as easy as possible.
So Google Drive is your go-to platform to sort of keep things organized and easily accessible from wherever you are.
Yeah.
And could you walk us through what the process is like when you're being inspected and your typical run through of during the inspection and any post-inspection action that you have to take?
So I'm not going to lie, 14 years ago, when I had my first organic inspection, when I took over managing the farm, I went around for days beforehand and made sure everything was perfect and I don't do that anymore. It is what it is. I mean, I very much live the farm life here by this is who we are on a day-to-day basis. And there's going to be some things that some T's you don't cross and some I's you don't dot. I mean, that's going to happen in anything. I think as long as you're honest about it and you're not making a major infraction, like feeding something that's not organic, it's not a perfect system. It's never, there are some wide parameters here and there's always room for improvement. So don't panic. That's my very first thing to tell people is don't panic. Don't get uptight. It's not worth it. It's not worth your mental health to do that. Just let it be. And I think as long as you have the intent of being organic 365 days of the year, you're going to be fine. And your auditor is going to see that. They're going to make suggestions. If they're a good auditor, they don't come in as an adversary. I've only ever had one come in like I felt like they were trying to catch me in anything. And I think you can say that. I believe in if you know that you're doing the right thing, stand up for yourself. And there's always going to be changes that maybe you didn't. I mean, farming's hard. We don't have a ton of time. If you're not on the right listserv or if you accidentally miss an email, you may miss something, but that's on the auditor to make sure that you get it right for next time or there's a corrective action. You're going to get a chance to make this right. Don't panic. But overall, I mean, the auditors are fantastic. And most of them are farmers themselves, and they've all been there and they know what this is about. And so, just come in it with a comfortable, at ease type of thing. And as long as you're doing the right thing, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine.
How did you pick your certifier? Like, have you trialed and errored and found some that you didn't have as good of an experience with and found a place that you were really happy with as a certifier? What sort of research did you do to make that decision of who you were going to go with?
So we certified through CCOF. Prior to me coming on board, David was always certified through QAI. My first year I certified with QAI, and honestly, I left them because back then you had to fill out all these forms and you had to put in this much information in a space this big. No. And to me, that just signifies that you are not trying to make this a user-friendly system. And so CCOF had an amazing onboarding system. They were kind. You get somebody to talk to whenever you need. There was a great website. It was interactive. I mean, they had templates and forms, and they would answer any question. So I've stayed with them. Do I think that they're perfect? And do I agree with everything they do? No. And I've looked for others, but I can't find one that I can say that I like better. So I stick with them. For me, a lot of it does come down to, I am very picky about, I want to do business with people who are aligned with my values. And the reason I have a hard time with CCOF is there anybody from CCOF on here? Because I want to say this out loud. But anyway, they often will certify large commercial livestock operations who are skirting the intent of organic. And I have a problem with that. So that's just my personal preference. But other than that, the inspectors are independent. They work with all kinds, they are not, like CCOF inspectors. They're independent contractors. They're hired by CCOF or Oregon Tilth or USDA or QAI or whoever you might have. So you're going to get whoever you get. A lot of times I'll have an inspector for CCOF here who's also inspecting for Oregon Tilth here at the same time, another farm tomorrow. So your inspectors are completely different than your agency.
And do you think that the new rule, organic livestock productions, the OLPS, gosh, I'm gonna mess that one up, but it's organic livestock and poultry standards, I think. So for that, is that going to help with what you mentioned around folks skirting the rule, in your opinion? Have you seen the implementation of it in any capacity yet? And is it sometimes when new rules are in place, it can often have unintended consequences, right? Like we know that with strengthening organic enforcement with some certifiers, the application really vastly increased in number of pages, and smaller scale farmers that I spoke to were hit really hard by saying I have to write an additional 15 pages of paperwork now in my process. So I'm just curious how you've been impacted by that rule, if yet, and if you think it'll effectively combat some of what you're just talking about with the skirting of the intention of the law.
I don't, for the livestock portion of it, I think from where it started several years ago when they first started talking about it to what they implemented got watered down significantly. So I am not impacted by it. And I don't really know anybody that is. So to me, it's still not. I would like to see the rules closer to certified humane. So, but that, again, I'm not, and I say this, I will always prioritize health and welfare of the animals over profit. So, and I know that not everybody is willing to do that or can do that. So there's a difference there. Yeah. It's just who I have to go home and go to, close my eyes every night and deal with myself. So this is how I choose to do it. But yeah, I don't think the people that run these big giant corporations really feel the impact of it at all.
Okay, that's really a great perspective. Thank you, because I was curious if it was going to, initiate on the ground any changes in that regard. Maybe there'll be room for it to be expanded further over time, especially if pressure continues. So, I'm wondering if you do any handling, processing, or what requirements or specifics you might have to meet for your eggs, and any substances that you use, if any, during that process.
So I sell all my eggs nest run, which means we don't wash them. And I'm here to tell you that, and I sell only direct to the public. I don't wholesale any of my eggs. And I don't like my egg production in winter falls significantly because of daylight hours. And my egg production in the summer falls significantly because of heat stress on the birds. I don't use artificial light. I don't even know if that's allowed. It's probably not allowed, but a lot of people do. And I do have cooling units. My chickens all have misters, and there is an evap cooler in my chicken house. So I try to keep the birds as comfortable as possible. That's what you can do. It's, yeah. So I don't do anything to the eggs themselves. I don't really need to hit that threshold of making my egg, having enough eggs to force me into the next category of having to wash and be USD or AZDA, USDA inspected. So no, I don't. And I sell two different types of eggs. I sell clean eggs, which are the eggs that come out clean, and those are the birds that laid in the pretty little nest boxes. And then remember those birds I said who want to lay on the ground? Yeah. So eggs are not all clean. They're dirty. A significant amount of them are dirty after they get laid. What we see in the grocery store are all washed eggs. So I sell clean eggs, and then I sell dirty eggs for a slightly cheaper price. But I mean, it's the same egg. No, it's just as healthy. It's just not pretty.
Yeah, we have gotten very used to pretty products at the grocery store. So I like that you're demystifying eggs and what they look like in real time for consumers. Well, as a sort of final question, then we'll take questions from the audience. I'm wondering if you can share any best piece of advice in your mind for folks who are looking to transition to organic certified, or if you have any story that you want to share that you didn't get to. But yeah, the most important things or inspirational things that you might want to share with everyone on the line.
Oh, I think I covered it all. I mean, we've been through everything. I mean, I feel like it. And then every year something else comes up, but there's not, I mean, chickens are one thing. I mean, I would say of all the livestock, chickens are the easiest to do certified organic. Especially if you're going to truly pasture raise them. The other livestock is harder just because of the availability of feed. But if you're a rancher and you've got pastures, then you're golden. Go for it, and I'm all about it. There are not that many certified organic like goat herds. In this part of the country. I mean, there's several in California and there's a few on the East Coast, but they're few and far between, really. As goats get more popular as well, I think you'll see more and more pop up. But it's, I don't know other than that. There's not goat meat. But the other thing to talk about when you're going to be a meat animal grower, rancher, is if you're going to do it certified organic, you really need to look at how you're going to process your animals, because right now there are no certified organic processors in the state either. So you know, if you're going to do your own chickens and process your own chickens, fantastic. You can do that. But other than that, you know, like if you have to send something out for slaughter, I don't, you know, and again, I don't know everybody, but I know a couple of people are interested in it and moving forward with it. And I hope that they get online very quickly with it, but it's, you know, you have to look at the whole, before you commit to it. I mean, I'm all about going and doing and certifying as much ground as possible. I mean, go and certify all your ground, do it right, soil health, all of that, pasture management, grazing, that's fantastic, start there. For the most part, the consumer is more concerned about how the animal is raised than how it was processed. But to get that final designation of organic meat, you're going to need an organic processor.
Yeah, that's a great point that there was a lot of funding that came down the pipelines for infrastructure in meat packing and processing. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with those funds and if any came to Arizona and who will be working on it in the coming years. I'd love to see a good organic certified slaughter plant here. So thank you so much. We'll hop in. I know we have a couple questions in the chat and then we've held you for longer than intended, Sara. And I know that you are very busy raising a huge flock over there on top of all the other products and being a super mom. So we won't keep you much longer, but I don't know. I know Sara Hipperson was gathering questions and I'll leave it to you, Sara, to ask
Hello,
questions.
everybody. Sara, thank you so much. That was amazing information. I do have some questions, and it's just kind of like to the whole group, as well as individuals can answer these questions. So, since we were just talking about poultry slaughter, a question came in for Sara. Can you please go into a little bit more detail on why you stopped your poultry slaughter, and was it on farm for you, or did you have a processor?
So we tried to bring in a couple young farmers who wanted to get into organic chicken production. And so we actually built a slaughter facility here on the farm as part of a new building we were building anyway. So it's about 750 square feet. We were going to do under 20,000 birds a year, obviously, because over 20,000, that's a lot of birds. And so we got it inspected with the USDA exemption. And ultimately, although I certify the birds, we're vegetable growers. I mean, that's really where we make our money, is in vegetables and crops like that. So strawberries, melons, whatever. The birds are fun and they bring people in, and we wanted our own organic chicken. However, you can call me a hypocrite all you want. I am not going to slaughter anything. I'm going to eat that bird. I'm going to raise that bird. I'm going to eat that bird, but I am not going to personally kill it. I can't do it. I can't do it. Now, if it was injured, I have put birds down. That's different. And ultimately, it's really hard to get labor because you're not going to do it every day. So it's not like I needed somebody every day to do this. I needed them, once a week, twice a month, for a couple of days sometimes. And we tried different schedules out, but you need a crew for what we were going to do. You needed a crew of like 3 or 4 people. And it was really hard to get that, and to get somebody who was knowledgeable and going to do it right and make sure. I mean, this is food. You also have to pay attention to food safety, which is a whole other component to all of this. And so there you have to marry your organic certification with your food safety part of it all. And it's a puzzle. It's a puzzle. It's doable, but it's a puzzle, and you got to fit it together just right. So in the end, both farmers ended up walking away from it and saying, I don't want to do it. I'm going to go do something else. And we're, like I said, we're vegetable farmers, and I don't want to spend that much time and energy on something that's really not going to make us a lot of money, because that wasn't the focus. I have friends who raise chickens and slaughter chickens in other parts of this state who this is their primary income. They do it very well. It's what they do. Let them do it. I don't need to be everything to everybody. I love chickens. Chickens are amazing. If you're having a stressful day, go outside and stand and watch chickens for 5 minutes. It's called a chicken coma. It will change your whole perspective in life. Chickens are smart. They make, I don't know, something like 50 or 150, I don't know, some outrageous amount of sounds to communicate with each other. They have dinosaur feet. They're super closely related to dinosaurs. They have these amazing little head tilt. I mean, everybody here, I'm sure, has seen chickens and has been mesmerized by chickens. There's nothing better than holding baby chickens and baby ducks. I even have a goose. We have one goose who thinks he's a goat. He's just a jerk. He's an asshole, really. But I love him. I mean, I love him, and he's got personality. There is not a chicken out there that doesn't have a great personality. So, you know, it's just one of those things. They add something more tangible to our life here on the farm than just another profit margin. So, you know, to me, that's absolutely worth it. It's worth it for me to say, for people to come and say, you know, I drove an hour to get eggs from you because, you know, I am very allergic to soy and it's really important. I'm not going to judge you. I'm grateful that you're here, and I want everybody to be able to eat quality food. So I'm going to do it the best way that I can.
I believe that. I totally understand that your business model is built around vegetables, your infrastructure, your everything is built around that. To add something else that's just as time consuming and having two main sort of models, but completely different from each other, is really difficult to manage. But your eggs, though, they act like a value add to like your existing. Yeah, totally.
And it changes. You know, people talk a lot about egg yolk color and how the nutrition of it is. It's different. I mean, if I feed my chickens a ton of cauliflower, white cauliflower, my eggs they're not any less nutritious than if I'm, you know, feeding them greens all day. It's just that they're going to be a different color. They're going to be a different color in the summer when it's really hot and their bodies are putting all of their energy into keeping cool and maintaining to be alive, than putting, you know, making sure that they have as dark a yolk as they can. Also, chickens, like a lot of people will do the blue and green egg thing because it's fun and it's cute, and who doesn't love a blue egg, right? I do. But chickens, over time, it's kind of like your hair. Their egg color, like when they first start laying, is a whole different color than it is a year later or 2 years later. I mean, that egg color gets paler and paler and paler till eventually your blue chicken is egg is white almost. So your spotted eggs become less spotted. So it's not necessarily that the chicken isn't as healthy or is laying as healthy eggs. It's how old is that chicken? What has it been eating? I mean, has my chicken been eating a ton of strawberries lately? Absolutely. Are my chicken yolks darker right now? Mm-hmm. Yes. Are my chicken yolks, you know, the young chickens versus the old chickens? So there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of education around it too, especially for us. There's a lot of education about what it means to have a dehydrated egg, or how long do nest run eggs last on your counter, or what is the difference? I mean, you know, some people can eat duck eggs and can't eat chicken eggs. So we talk about protein profiles and why you can do that. It's fascinating and it's exciting. But the other part is I do get something else from the chickens, is I get chicken manure to compost. So for me, those chickens do add a whole other part of and value to our farming system here. So You know, there's
That's great,
a
actually.
giant circle here.
It's like less inputs. Like
Yeah.
your inputs are the feed and taking care of them, and then now you have manure
Mhm.
that you don't have to purchase in.
Right.
Yeah, totally. We got a couple more chicken questions. Could you, how do you handle your big hens and your teenagers who just got their feathers? How do you handle their feeding situation when the big birds bully the teenagers, from eating enough? I think I understand that question,
Yeah.
right?
So yes, so chickens are pretty territorial and there's definitely a hierarchy. I do keep a few roosters with my hens, and it's not because I am ever going to hatch my own chickens, but it keeps the mean girls less mean, honestly. I mean, the roosters kind of keep the girls in check sometimes. Most of the time they do, actually. But for me, I keep my chickens separate until 18 weeks. So I raise them completely in a different part of the farm for 18 weeks. And then at 18 weeks at night, I move my chickens at night after my chickens in the big pastures have gone to bed. And the other chickens have gone, because one, they're much easier to catch and move. You don't expend a lot of energy. You just go pluck and put, pluck and put. And when you're moving 100 chickens, you don't want to chase 100 chickens. So we do that and we crate them and we dry them out back and we put them down. And then in the morning, everybody wakes up and there's a whole lot less fighting that way. Also, there is a giant space. I mean, we're talking 2 acres. So nobody's really has to be, the only thing we do is we do go back in the morning and we try to, so a lot of times I will sleep there at night because I need to get there first thing in the morning. And I'll take the ones that I just moved and I go and dip their beaks, just like when they're babies and you get them and you dip their beaks to show them where the water is. I go and dip their beaks again, so that they know where the water is. And we have water in a few different spots, but I will show them the main chicken water spot just so they know. But overall, I don't have a problem with that fighting. And I think a lot of it is a space thing. I mean, like I said, there's plenty of space, and to me that's super important. And doing it at night is just way better. It's so much better when there's no other commotion going on. So
Yes, that's a question I have then. Like, how do you, like, what is your formula then for the number of chickens to square feet? Like, do you have kind of over time come up with like a particular square footage per chicken, or just
so there is a formula. I don't know it out of the top of my head, but there is so many per square feet of space, living, indoor space as well as outdoor space. But I far exceed that. I don't want to have more chickens, I'm never going to have as many chickens as I could have. I guess I could, but I'm not going to.
Yeah. So this question came up a couple times. You ran through earlier the types of bird breeds that you like. Could you run through that list one more time for the attendees?
Yeah, so I like Barred Rocks. I like Buckeyes. I like Rhode Island Reds. I like New Jersey Giants. I like New Hampshires. The Orpingtons are lovely. They're a little broody, but you can get Orpingtons. I do still get a couple of fancy Wyandottes here and there. Usually we keep those up front because people like to talk about pretty chickens, so we'll do that. A lot of times when you're ordering a lot of chickens, the hatchery will send you like a free ornamental breed or a free fancy breed or whatever. We put those up front. They're almost always bantams. They always turn out to be roosters too. But whatever, people like to see them. so it's a good conversation starter, but overall, olive egger, whatever your hatchery is named there, Americana, olive egger, whatever. We do some of those because people like colored eggs. I'm looking for something that is both heat tolerant and cold tolerant. It's very hard to find a bird that's only heat tolerant and not cold tolerant, but it doesn't really matter about cold tolerance here. And I like something that lays between 200 and 250 eggs a year. I'm not looking for anything that's much over 250. I think that those birds are more fragile. I lose a lot more of those birds over, when the weather is hot than I do the hardier breeds. So I like to say they're usually less weight. People like them because their feed conversion to egg ratio is higher, but I think a lot of what they're lacking is smarts and survival skills.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing your experience with your breeds with us. So this last question, kind of like to everybody, and I'm not sure myself about this, but Stacy asked, are there any initiatives in motion to include sustainable packaging with organic certification requirements, I guess for both vegetable and livestock? Because it's strange to buy organic products and things like plastics and styrofoam. Anybody know the answer to this?
I can jump in and say I don't believe so. And I also think it goes beyond packaging, that organic has a long time issue with plastics. And a lot of the organic farms that I've worked on, we were heavily dependent on plastic for weed control. And it's something that you're always sort of balancing out, right? You want to really farm in a sustainable way, but there are still inputs that are going in. So we did, and there are folks who are doing amazing work with cover cropping to reduce reliance on plastics, but plastic mulching for places I've worked was really big. So there is plastic use in organic, and I don't think there's anything that's changing that anytime soon, but maybe in the future.
There's the Europeans have developed a plastic mulch that's biodegradable. It only, it's got like a 4 or 6 month lifespan. And there's a lot more packaging out there. The packaging industry is really starting to change, but we started packaging our salad mixes for sprouts this year in a bag that's called bioable. So in 18 months, it's completely dissolved into no identifiable plastics, which is completely different. And it's all cellulose based. So it's not GMO corn, it's not but that type of a product either, but and it's not, but it does take longer to totally break down, but when it breaks down, it's gone completely. And so I love that. There's a lot of alternatives out there, but you have to look, and they're of course always more expensive, but I think that for the most part, consumers are okay with paying a little bit more. I mean, and when I talk about more, you're talking, 4 or 5 cents per unit, maybe more. And I think most people are okay with, doing that, because people who buy organic, I mean, organic is the most recognized of the labels now. And then non-GMO as well. Regenerative is going to come along. Certified humane is pretty big in eggs. So anyway, I mean, there's a lot out there. You just have to look for it. I package all my eggs in, pulp, instead of styrofoam or plastic, and it works better.
It's a difficult area for some people too. Just, I think cost wise as well, like how much can you afford if you're buying in bulk, to be able to justify something that's sustainable, like temporarily, even like, yeah. But thank you for answering the question, you two.
Yeah, you know what Sarah says really great too. I think when you're direct marketing and have a lot of motivation, I would say that you, Sarah, are very motivated and inspirational in just your core values and how you execute them. And that's a really great thing about how you farm. I'm curious and your larger scale too. So I am curious with wholesaling if there's any motions in place, and I honestly don't know. Wholesaling packages, certain stores, if you know of any, Sarah, that are,
No,
willing to pay more for sustainable packaging.
no, it's funny because like when we found this packaging last year, so the first year we were in Sprouts, we were in regular foam plastic, which is unfortunate because it's disgusting, right? Like we use a lot of it. So to find something for one of our biggest commodities that we grow and to put into something totally sustainable, we thought Sprouts was going to be over the moon for this, right? Not so much. It was all about the dollars and cents. Like, how much is this going to increase your unit cost? And I was like, but it's, it's a marketing, and my personal customers, my direct customers were so excited. And you don't, obviously you don't get that sort of feedback from the grocery store customer as much, but you do get some. And so I kind of say for every phone call we do get generated by something that we didn't sell directly, there's got to be at least 10 more people that noticed. So if I got 10 calls this year, I think at least 100 people noticed, and that was great. So yeah, I think that it'll come. I mean, the packaging industry, I don't read, a lot of the publications religiously, but when I do read them, I mean, more and more you see sustainable packaging out there. I mean, I just had wrist surgery a few weeks ago, and I have to have more wrist surgery next week. But so my family doesn't like to do dishes. So I was like, whatever, I'm not going through this again for the next 12 weeks. I was like, I'm going to go buy paper plates. And I actually found hefty biodegradable plates in the grocery store, regular grocery store. I was shocked because I was like, I'm going to have to buy them from Amazon, or I'll go to one of my distributors or something like that. And I was like, I don't ever buy paper plates. So maybe this has been a thing for a long time and I don't know. But to me, it's out there. It's out there. And it's not just paper products and plastics, but it's so much more. But I would say it's coming. I think it's really coming. I think this whole movement in organics to the integrity of organics, I think what we're seeing now is just the first step. And I really do think that you'll see more of it over the next 10 to 15 years and towards this.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for all of the questions. And with that, we're looking towards the future. I think it's a great time to let you go, Sarah. Just can't thank you enough. And thanks to Sara, all of the Sarahs. And now I'll invite Sara El-Said from the Sweetie Center on here. And we'll talk about resources available if you're wanting to take the next step to organic.
And I just want to say, I say this with everybody, if you have more questions or think of questions later, reach out, because the more people who are organic, the better. So I'm willing to help anybody.
And you are helping people through exactly this program that I'm going to be talking about. So, yeah. Should I get started, Colleen?
Yes, let me just add you.
Can you see my screen?
Spotlight. We can, yeah.
Perfect. All right. Yes. So Sara Dolan, as you all have heard, is a fantastic farmer and livestock raiser and just all around amazing human being, and is part of this program that I will be talking about right now. So my name is Sara El-Said. and I work for the Sweetie Center for Sustainable Food Systems out of Arizona State University. And we are the state lead for this program called Transition to Organic Partnership Program, or TOP. So we're the leads for the state of Arizona. And we have a lot of different resources that we can offer to people who are curious, interested, looking to transition to organic partnership. And this is what I'm going to be talking to you about today. So just a quick overview. TOP is really a network assembled by the National Organic Program. So this is the USDA's NOP program, which supports existing organic producers as well as transitioning organic producers through a variety of different resources. So these include a mentorship program, which I would say is the biggest chunk of the work that we do, and then a whole bunch of other resources. And the overall goal is to really try to start creating a larger network of organic producers across the country. In the state of Arizona, we are receiving funding through this 5-year cooperative agreement. And all of this is overseen by CCOF, which was mentioned earlier, which is California Certified Organic Farmers. So they're the ones that are leading the work in the Southwest region. And so some of just, quick things that this means is the resources we're talking about are different workshops. So workshops like today on livestock, webinars, field days, technical assistance that can be provided one-on-one, just overall education about organic production, and also understanding the certification process. So our specific role at the Sweetie Center is to run the farmer-to-farmer mentorship, to work on building community. So this is why we appear in all the different events that are here, just so that you get to know us and we get to know you. Technical assistance and training. So we actually had our first field day at Sara Dolan's farm at Bluesky Organic about a month ago. It was attended by many different people, either in our program or just people who are curious and wanting to learn. We are also doing data collection and trying to understand not just who's joining, what is taking place, how big of operation, but also understanding some of the challenges and barriers that we are facing specifically in our state, but also we're doing that for the whole country. So the Sweetie Center is responsible for the data collection for the entire country, so that we can then send that back to NOP, and hopefully based on that kind of reporting and data collection, we could make some changes. We're also working heavily with other different organizations on workforce training and development. So for the mentorship is a year-long program that you can reapply for. The mentor, who is someone who is an existing organic certified producer, so they could be either a crop producer, a livestock producer, or a handler, or all, will receive a stipend for each year of mentorship. And so this is a paid professional development, and then they will develop also their teaching and facilitation skills through training, and they will be supporting a mentee in their transitioning process. They need to have at least 3 years of direct experience in USDA's organic certification, and the commitment is for 45 hours in that year, 5 of which are training hours. Now, granted, there are some mentors who are just giving more than these hours, but that's the requirement. The mentees get a stipend for their mentorship as well, and that stipend mostly is for travel costs, because it is expected that the mentees and mentors visit each other's operations to learn in more details. The mentorship, the mentee will receive a mentorship from a USDA certified organic producer. They will get assistance on the organic system plan, which Sara Sharrona was so gracious at explaining how that looks like for livestock. And then you'll get training, resources, workshops, and then we'll get access also to other funds from other organizations that are working as part of USDA, like NRCS, FSA, and so on. And the idea is that you intend to become USDA certified organic in one of the different scopes or different scopes of organic certification. And you are committing to 1 year, and that is 40 hours. So far we have, as of May 2024, we have 11 mentors in our program in the state of Arizona and 15 applied mentees with 10 matches. So there's still some people who have not been matched yet. In those mentors, we have people that are in vegetable, grains, trees, and orchards, poultry, and hydroponic production. And the mentees are small to medium scale, again, looking at poultry, backyard growers, cattle, sheep, grain, hydroponic, and aquaponic productions. And then I wanted to just direct you to some of the resources that we have. So we have a website called Arizona Top, top written TOPP.org. I highly recommend you enter the website. It gives you an explanation of this program, but it also has all our upcoming, first of all, it has applications for the mentorship program, and then it has all our upcoming events, which even if you're not part of the mentorship, they're open for anyone to attend, be it virtual or in person. And then we have all the resources, different resources. So here is an example of the resources that we offer. So this here was a fact sheet that we created, giving just a very brief explanation of how to kind of what is the certification process like. And this is a short list of potential certifiers that we know are now actively working in Arizona and the scopes that they are certifying, and then a link to their websites and so forth. And also this flyer also says, what kind of type, how do does the application type look like? So different certifiers will have, like Sarah was explaining earlier, just a whole big document or module. So it really depends. And then the last thing I wanted to kind of say is that our upcoming event is a virtual one in June 6th, so coming up next week, and it is from 9 to 11:30 a.m. And this one will have a little bit of, again, a history of organic, but this time this will be presented by Kathleen Merrigan, who is the executive director of our center, but she's also one of the people who in the 90s was writing that organic bill that now, we're all kind of following. And so it really gives the context, the historical context of what it took for this bill and this act to come together. And then we have a local inspector called Inge Vogelman, who certifies, who works as an inspector for several certifiers, who's going to walk us through the kind of process of an organic system plan in a generic way. And so this is a part one of a two-part series. So this is the presentation that I have. If you have any questions, I'm also happy to answer them. But if not, just reach out to us. Again, arizonatop.org is our website.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Does your organization only hold on, let me make sure I say this correctly. Does your organization only work with nonprofit organizations?
We work with individuals. So as long as you're farming and want to farm, we work with individuals. You don't have to be a company or a nonprofit or.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah. Are you a farmer?
Yeah. So I run a company called Cultivating Leaders, which is my tag up there.
Yeah.
But I run a 1 acre farm in downtown Phoenix, and I run a farm in my backyard as well.
Perfect. Sign up and you'll get matched with a mentor that makes sense, that kind of matches your needs. And so, yeah.
Sweet. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you so much, Sara. I'm going to now invite Marina up to speak. So Marina, if you want to hop on cam and throw your mic on and give us the information that NRCS has to offer us.
Thank you so much, Colleen. I'm going to get my screen share going here. Alrighty. Everything okay with audio and screen share going?
Yes, it looks great.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you again so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today and just briefly share some of the opportunities for financial and technical assistance through NRCS, including the NRCS piece of the USDA Organic Transition Initiative. Just a really brief intro for myself. I'm Marina Oriel, and I work in a joint position between Oregon Tilth and NRCS. Oregon Tilth has had an agreement with NRCS for about 14 years now to provide training and technical assistance around organic topics for NRCS staff. So my position is mostly NRCS staff facing, and I work to help them better understand organic systems and ultimately better be able to assist organic and transitioning producers. So NRCS provides technical and financial assistance for conservation-related activities. So just a sort of a general overview if you're not yet familiar with NRCS generally. Many of these activities align really well with the organic regulations. So just for a few examples, and these are specific to keeping livestock in mind. For pasture health, things like nutrient management, pasture and grazing management, diverse pasture plantings, prescribed grazing, related to livestock living conditions, things like fencing, walkways, watering facilities, compost facilities, windbreaks, or alley cropping for shelter and shade. And so NRCS provides this assistance through a few different programs. First, the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, or EQIP. And EQIP provides this financial and technical support to implement practices that can be key components of organic farms. So things like establishing buffer zones, planting hedgerows, planting pollinator habitat, creating a rotational grazing system, building nutrient management. There is a program within EQIP called the EQIP Organic Initiative that is specifically available to certified organic farms, transitioning to organic farms, and farms exempt from organic certification. And that is important when it comes to funding. If you let NRCS know that you are transitioning to organic, they can submit your application to be ranked with other organic and transitioning farms. So there will actually be a smaller pool of applicants that you're being considered with for your application. So if EQIP is the, oh, thank you for sharing some links there in the chat. If EQIP is, I would say sort of like the 101 level of conservation programs, I would then call conservation stewardship program like the 201 level. CSP again is offering technical assistance and payments for actively managing, maintaining, and expanding conservation activities. So again, things like cover crops, rotational grazing, ecologically based pest management. If you are already doing some of these activities, CSP can provide assistance for maintaining and enhancing those activities. CSP does not have a fund pool that is specific to organic producers, but many of the enhancements like reducing tillage, those sorts of things are still very relevant to organic production. All right, so as you heard about the transition to organic partnership program just before me, that is part of this larger USDA organic transition initiative. NRCS has their own role to play in this organic transition initiative, and that is through a new organic management standard that they have developed, 823. This standard supports many purposes, as I have on my slide here, to help producers meet the organic regulations, and it mirrors the organic regulations. So it specifically calls out, for example, like the need for buffer zones. It calls out the need to use organic seed when planting pasture, or any crop, but specifically related to livestock production for pasture, if commercially available. It is a standard that looks at the whole system as you transition to organic. So if you are interested in this 823 practice, just keep in mind that NRCS staff are not necessarily experts in the organic regulations. They are experts in conservation. And this standard is not necessarily to be seen as consulting for meeting the organic requirements. It's still going to be your responsibility to understand and comply with the organic regulations. But there is funding available through an 823 contract for hiring a crop consultant or attending workshops to help you better understand the regulations and make sure you're on your way to meeting them. So it's sort of similar to programming that TOP offers. I fully support folks participating in both of these at once. And so you could benefit from mentorship through TOP and also conservation assistance through NRCS. So you can also contract 823 for your entire transition period. So as you are working through adjusting your operation to meet the organic regulations, over time, maybe you're focusing on different pieces of your operation, and this standard can support you throughout that entire transition. So if 1 year you're focused on nutrient management of the land, say, and the next year you want to focus on things like establishing fencing, this standard can support you throughout that entire period. There is also through the NRCS Organic Transition Initiative, depending on a few factors around the makeup of your operation, there is the potential for foregone income reimbursement, and this is meant to account for any dips in production during the transition period. So just to give you an idea of the financial assistance piece, there is a really big range here, as you can see, based on many different factors, the size of your operation, what kind of production, if you are considered historically underserved, if you qualify for foregone income. This is on a per acre basis for these rates here. So how do you access NRCS programs? The first and the best way is really just to get in contact with your local NRCS office. They will visit your farm. They will talk through some of your options. The process of applying can take time. There's some paperwork involved. There's scheduling someone to come out. There is a whole cycle of funding that NRCS goes through each year, and so it can take time. So I do recommend contacting NRCS and applying when you have an opening in your schedule, and try to get your paperwork completed well in advance of their deadlines. Deadlines are announced each fiscal year. So Arizona's deadline for EQIP, CSP, and OTI this year was February 2nd. So we have passed that deadline, but applications are also accepted year round. So I don't recommend putting it off necessarily until next January or February, just because we've sort of passed that deadline for this year. I do recommend getting the process at least started as soon as possible by getting in touch with your local office. To be eligible for technical and financial assistance, you will need a tax ID, a property deed or lease agreement showing that you have control of the property, and a farm number. A farm number is something that you can get from the Farm Service Agency, and luckily, there is usually a Farm Service Agency office located in the same building as the NRCS office. I also would encourage folks to check out the NRCS Organic webpage. Look at some of the resources that are available here. I think this can be really helpful for getting an idea of just some of the language NRCS uses, some of the conservation practices that they can support. This can be really helpful for when you're approaching your local office, just to have an idea already of some of the things you might be looking for support on, some of perhaps your resource concerns, things that NRCS might be able to help with. And again, I'm happy to stick around for questions. This is my contact info. I'm always happy to support producers in learning about the types of assistance that NRCS has available and approaching NRCS and navigating some of those government systems. So yeah, happy to answer any questions, or please reach out to me.
Do we have any questions for Marina or anyone else on the call? I think Sara is still on here. So if anyone has any last questions, now's a great time to ask them. And I will share the event survey. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking time out of your day to learn about organic livestock and basic requirements today. Oops. Let me just share on this screen our event survey. We'd really appreciate if you could take it and let us know what you thought. What more do you want to see in events, webinars, in-person events, how we can best provide good workshops like this for you.
There is a question in the chat just popped up. Is I'm assuming top or mentor mentee and or NRCS equip and section 823 available in Canada?
Yeah, I can speak to if you're referring to NRCS in that question. Unfortunately, because it is a United States federal agency and program, it is limited to the US.
Yeah, and TOP is also a USDA program, so limited to the US.